Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering Vinicius Jr. We know that he has not won the Ballon d'Or, but whether or not has the fallout been extreme, we'll discuss that. We'll discuss Manchester City getting knocked out of the Carabao Cup by Tottenham. We'll discuss Napoli's statement victory over AC Milan. As they're looking really good in Serie A. We'll discuss Chelsea taking on Manchester United. That'll be coming up this weekend, so we'll discuss that game. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show, where I'll be giving you some of my reactions to some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. If you have a question during the show, we want to hear. Your input is a big part of what makes the show successful, and we thrive on your energies and insights. Whether it's a quick comment, a thoughtful question, or an opinion you just have to share, please don't hesitate to drop it in the chat. And if you want to make absolutely sure your message stands out and gets featured on the show, there's an easy way to do that. Use the super chat feature. Just click the $ at the bottom of the chat box to send in your super chat. This guarantees that your super chat gets read on the air, and it's also a fantastic way to support our channel. We rely on your support to keep bringing you the sports content you love, and we appreciate every bit of it. So go ahead and let us know what you're thinking. Hit that super chat button, and let's keep the show as interactive and exciting as possible. And if you prefer, you can always go to the GSMC Podcast.net to tip, donate, and leave a comment or question there. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. We have to start off with the fallout from Vinicius Jr. not winning the Ballon d'Or. It's continuing. It's been a little dramatic, to say the least. The fallout has been. It's been very interesting to see how the press, how Real Madrid, how the whole outside world has been taking it. A lot of players dedicating full-on posts for Vinicius Jr., who they believe was aggrieved. Obviously, we know Real Madrid boycotting it. The shenanigans going on from there with Real Madrid boycotting it, almost not accepting of the decision made by the French Football Association, L'Equipe, all that. And it's in my opinion, it's been a little dramatic, the extreme sort of reaction to this. And I thought it was a tight one entering. I just thought the momentum was heading towards Vinicius' way based on all the chit chat that was made post pre the Ballon d'Or. Seemed like it was Vinicius's, and it was wrapped up. That's what it sounded like. But I always, in the back of my mind, thought Rodri was more deserving if you saw what he did in his total play in terms of club and international football, winning the European Championship with Spain. But there's definitely another side to my opinion when it comes to a lot of people feeling aggrieved at this Vinicius Jr. thing. Real Madrid protesting it, not being petty behavior. In my opinion, almost scandalous behavior, pretty ridiculous and pretty childish. And they have been called out by a lot of people for it. But when you're Real Madrid, when you're a club like Real Madrid, and if you had the greatness that they have had over the past couple of years, you can get away with nonsense like this. You can get away with protesting this award. You can get away with horrible sportsmanship, which it is. Look, this is not an award gone to Real Madrid, obviously, but it's still being a sore loser here because obviously they were highly invested in Vinicius winning this Ballon d'Or. They they bought the rights for the Ballon d'Or so they can have it on their channel. They made a lot of effort assuming that Vinicius was gonna win the Ballon d'Or, and in a moment they heard it wasn't, and I guess it was an emotional reaction. Maybe it's not the fact that they just feel aggrieved that Vinicius didn't deserve the Ballon d'Or, but also the indications that they were given that he would. Maybe that aggrieved them as well. But again, it's shocking behavior and it's inexcusable. It's inexcusable when you look at from the club. Now, Vinicius, I think he might be the only person here that's not at fault at all. Because look, I mean, he hasn't came out and, said anything crazy. He had that one tweet. Apart from that, he's kind of been out of the shadow. So I think Vinicius Jr. is definitely, there's nothing to give him any sort of slack over. Strictly when it comes to Vinicius, I don't believe there's anything that he's done that was wrong, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. It's everything around him, with all these players coming out with individual posts dedicated to him has even been robbed. Look, we want to break down Vinicius Jr.'s last season, okay? He had an excellent Champions League campaign for Real Madrid. Excellent Champions League campaign for Real Madrid last season. 10 goals and assist contributions in 10 games. 6 goals, 4 assists. Some important moments as well. You look at the 2 goals in the first leg against Bayern. You look at how he dominated that second leg against Bayern, especially in that second half. He was a man amongst boys in there. He scored the second goal in the Champions League final. He showed up in the biggest moments for Real Madrid in the Champions League, and that's really what puts him in this contention. He was brilliant, and there's no taking that away. You look at his 2023-2024 La Liga stats, though. 26 games, he has 15 goals and 5 assists, 20 goal contributions in 26 games. That's a good season. For a winger, that's a really good season, right? But 20 goals in 26 games, it's not exactly Ballon d'Or caliber. And I have to say, last season in La Liga, yes, they won La Liga, and yes, you had a really good season. As a winger, scoring 15 goals is really, really good. But there was some games that he didn't show up. There was some inconsistencies with Vinicius Jr. throughout their La Liga campaign last season. There's no arguing that. There was, he showed up for the majority of the moments, but there was some periods where he was inconsistent. Now you compare that for Rodri, when he plays for City, there's no inconsistencies. Game in, game out is 9 out of 10s at least. He's a player. I think he's 70 plus games unbeaten or something whenever he was playing, and that has something to do with it. On top of that, the big thing that that's one major thing that's in the favor of Rodri is the consistency game in, game out. The consistency game in, game out was Rodri. But the biggest thing, in my opinion, is the difference in performance and achievements on the international stage. Vinicius Jr. playing for the Brazilian national team at the Copa America, he was not there, quite frankly. Quite frankly, it's the story of his entire Brazilian national team career. Him not being there. Him not showing up for his country. That's just the God-honest truth. That's just the God-honest truth. He was not there. He was not there for his country. You look at the opening game of the Copa America against Costa Rica. He did not show up. He played his best game of the tournament, probably his best game in his Brazilian national team in that second game against Paraguay, I have to say. I thought he was pretty good then. And then against Colombia, when they need to get some sort of result to avoid having to play Uruguay, they don't lay egg against Colombia, finished 1-1, but again, Vinicius Jr. was not at that level. In fact, forget him even being at that level, he ended up getting a second yellow card that got him suspended in the quarterfinals, in which they got eliminated by Uruguay in penalties. So obviously, poor Copa America for Vinicius Jr. You look at Rodri, game in and game out, important part of Spain, had some big moments too. That goal he scored against Georgia, he dictated the tempo, he composed the game. It was his first opportunity to lead Spain at that number 6 position at a major international tournament. Now with Busquets, this is the first tournament Spain are without Busquets, going all the way back to, I believe, probably 2010 World Cup or something of that sort. It's been a really, really long time. And it really, really tells the story of how important it really tells the story of how important Rodri is for both his international team and his club team. He's a massive part of both teams. And I think that has a big factor in this decision. And this fallout to say that, and even if you don't agree with what I'm saying and you don't think Rodri deserved it and you want to go with Vinny, okay, that's fine. But the fallout is more than beyond dramatic. This is not the biggest robbery we have ever seen. We've seen a way worse robberies. Not just in the Ballon d'Or, but just in general when it comes to awards. We've seen some pretty bad robberies. But this is the one, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's Real Madrid and they have a lot of pull. And they're just such a big club and have so many fans, and these sort of things happen when, as Real Madrid, they have so many fans that there's so many people to defend their player. But to act like this is a robbery, I think is more than extreme. More than extreme. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll do a full reaction to Manchester City getting knocked out of the Carabao Cup by Tottenham.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, I'm losing shit. A stupid myth, you choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Before the break, we reacted to the fallout from Vinicius Jr. not winning the Ballon d'Or. We move on to do a full reaction to City getting knocked out of the Carabao Cup by Tottenham. Obviously, disappointing result. In a vacuum, disappointing result for City. Obviously, this is a team with the quality and the talent that they have throughout the entire team. They fully expect to go, to win every single trophy and to win as many trophies possible year in, year out. So I don't think it's much bigger than what's one less trophy. Obviously, there's a different element of desperation between the two teams in terms of that approach in getting a trophy. I do say I thought Tottenham would come out and treat this game a little bit more seriously than they did. You had you had a lot of the first team players, yes, but I expected this to be a full-fledged first team because we know the emphasis that Tottenham have on getting a trophy because they haven't gotten one in God knows how many years, and we know before the season that Postecoglou damn near guaranteed a trophy, saying I always get a trophy in my second season. So ideally, when you look at it, yes, Tottenham are playing in the Europa League as well, which is a really good opportunity. But this EFL Cup is a massive opportunity as well. Especially if you do take on some of the better teams early, they won't take it as serious. And this is a prime example of that with City. You have players like O'Reilly, McCarthy, Matheus Nunes, Ortega. Not full-fledged first-team players. You sprinkle in a little bit of leadership there from Gundogan, Ruben Diaz, John Stones. It's a good mix for Manchester City, but it wasn't their first full-fledged team. Far from that. And Tottenham were able to take advantage through first-half goals that came from Timo Werner in the 5th minute, and Papasar, 25th. Nunez, he got the goal to half the deficit, and you thought that was the opportunity to get City back into the game. They had their few opportunities in that second half. They were able to create a little bit, but at the end of the day, Spurs was able to get it done. They were able to defeat Manchester City, and it's a good win. It's a very, very good win for them because they continue a potential trophy push. They give themselves a chance going forward for a potential trophy, and it's hard, especially early on in these sort of tournaments, because to take them seriously, because you think even if we win this game, there's still many games to go, and the chances of us really lifting this trophy are slim. But I think Tottenham, they just need to take one game at a time. I really do. Look, ideally, if you're a Tottenham fan, getting top four, not getting top four is not the worst thing in the world. If you win the Europa League, you get that trophy, that first trophy in God knows how many years, alongside a Champions League appearance for next season. I think that is a much more desired achievement if you're a Tottenham supporter, getting that Europa League win and playing in the Champions League next season. Because I think they'd prefer that a lot more than just qualifying into the Champions League through the top four. Obviously, you qualify through the top four, it's probably a better accounting of how you are as a team because of that 38 game league format and how you can have a run in one of these European competitions and not be necessarily the best team, but when you're playing in the league and you're getting into that top four, you have to be a really, really good team to get into the top four, especially in this Premier League that has City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea are really looking really, really good. We know what Aston Villa can be. But I do think getting top four will be a struggle for Tottenham because of their slow start with this team. But overall, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with the was not necessarily this game, but the you had an emotional loss against Crystal Palace, difficult loss, bad loss that you suffered. But to quickly turn around from that, to be without players like Son Heung-min, and to beat a City team that, yes, City didn't play their first team, but we know all the pressures on Tottenham in these sort of games, in these competition games, because, you know, any game in any competition you play in is another chance for Tottenham to get eliminated from a possibility to win a trophy. And there's pressure in that. There's definitely pressure in that. The Tottenham players on that pitch, they definitely felt that little bit of pressure of, you know, that trophy, that massive trophy drought looming over, you know, over the club. For me, there's no doubt about that. As far as Manchester City, look, we're not the worst deal in the world. The only, you know, really bad part about this game is the injury to Savio, and it's very unfortunate the way it happened too. It's, you know, a freak moment, and yeah, that is a pretty bad blow for Tottenham. I mean, for Manchester City, because he was having a really good season, and he has that direct nature to him that it gives you something a little bit different, and he was a very valuable piece for Manchester City, and he was played a lot too. You know, Pep Guardiola, that was a player Pep Guardiola really trusted in Savio, despite him newly coming to Manchester City this season from Girona. So I'm keep saying Savinho. And you know, him being carried off in a stretcher, that never looks good. It never looks good, and it looks like it might be a potential bad blow. And if that's the case, that's a really pity for Savio. I thought he was playing, you know, some really good football. He was, you know, really announcing himself at the highest level, and you just hate to see a player of his quality on the trajectory that he was currently. He was only going to get better, and now he has this injury to deal with. We still don't know the extent yet, so we don't really know exactly what is needed, you know, for him to step back onto the pitch. But yeah, overall, you know, for City, you know, obviously you expect to win every game, and you expect to be in the, you know, in and around, you know, the League Cup final for, or any cup final that you're competing for with the squad that they have. But again, you know, not winning Carabao Cup is not the worst deal in the world. In fact, you know, this could be looked at as a possibility for City to lock in on league games, not even have to worry about Carabao Cup now, for the next few months or so, while other teams that are directly battling with them, like Arsenal and Liverpool, they'll still have Carabao Cup battles to play in December, with Liverpool taking on Southampton, Arsenal taking on Palace. So there could be that aspect to it. I do think one thing I did not mention is I talked about Savinho's injury. Big loss for Tottenham in this one. Mickey van de Ven is a very important part for Tottenham in terms of how his pace is so vital for that back line with that extremely high line that they play. And it's simply his muscles can't handle the speed that he's going at, the body. You know, he can't handle it. He's too fragile, and it's been a lot of injuries that Van de Ven has suffered since he's came in. Now it's his hamstring going yet again, and those are always tricky and pretty hard to come from, especially a player that relies on his pace. You know, you need your hamstrings to be at 100%, and that's a major blow. It's, you know, especially depending on the severity of it. That's a sort of injury that can take you out for a really long time, and that's the last thing Tottenham wanted, because they are coming off that disappointing result this weekend to Crystal Palace, and, you know, they have a sour taste in their mouth, and yeah, it's unfortunate for Tottenham. That's a big loss. Short break here coming up, and when we come back, we will react to Napoli's statement victory over AC Milan.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed Manchester City getting knocked out of the Carabao Cup by Tottenham. We move on to discuss Napoli's statement victory over AC Milan. Now, this was a game that was a big game, a big show. I have to say, I was so excited looking forward to this one because it was a chance to see, has Napoli started the season has been a fluke. They came into this game was I believe they had 22 points entering this game, 7 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. They were at first place in Serie A, and they're coming on some positive momentum, and I want to see how they build on the 4 consecutive wins that they had in Serie A against Monza, Como, Empoli, Lecce. And they defeated the likes of Milan 2-0. Really good opening goal from, and they went away in San Siro to do that. Really good opening goal from Romelu Lukaku. The physicality to him, using his shoulder, out-muscling, I believe it was Pavlovic to get through 1-0. Then you have some quality from Kvaratskhelia to make it 2. Interesting approach from Paulo Fonseca in this one. He brought in Pulisic and Leao off the bench to save the deal in that second half. They couldn't come up with the moments to get AC Milan back into the game. And it's Napoli, and despite them not really dominating these games, they are playing efficient football. They're defending really. Oh, by the way, Pulisic was out of the lineup due to the flu. Just to correct myself there. But as far as Napoli though, in this one, in general this season, they've been able to be very, very efficient. And we know with Antonio Conte, this is not a manager that's going to just open the team up and allow them to be defensive vulnerable. He has a balanced way of going about it. And some will call it pragmatic. I call it playing football, playing football, the way you want it to play. If you want to be naturally a pragmatic manager, in my opinion, there's beauty in that. I think there's a portion of the population that correlates pragmatism in terms of soccer tactics as a negative approach, and as I've heard him being called many times now football terrorism. While I happen to see the beauty aspect of playing pragmatic football. I appreciate the beauty of defending, the dullness, because it takes a lot of, number one, whenever you play that way, it takes a lot of mental discipline, because you will be under a lot of pressure. You will concede possession, and whenever a team has majority of the possession, You have to be constantly aware of the spaces that that the other team could take advantage of. You have to be constantly closing the gaps. You have to be compact in the way you defend. There's an element there that requires a lot of mental toughness. And that's not something I overlook when I'm seeing a team play that pragmatic approach. And then it requires, number one, for you to be deadly in transition and for you to be efficient. You have to be efficient because you're not going to be able, when you have less of possession, when you have less men forward, you're going to have less opportunities to get the breakthrough. So when the opportunities come, take advantage of it. And that's what exactly Lukaku did. 50 minutes, an opportunity arose and he took advantage of it. And that's probably why, Antonio Conte wanted Lukaku. Now, Lukaku's not considered to be the most consistent player in the world, but he plays consistent football under Antonio Conte. And I don't know, they're both of them, Conte, Lukaku, they both each other's safe space, I guess. As far as Napoli, they're looking good. And this is reminding me a lot of Antonio Conte's first season at Chelsea. You go back to that first season that he had at Chelsea where he won the Serie A, or where he won the Premier League. Keep in mind, there was a Chelsea team that completely crapped the bed the year before, kind of like what Napoli did last season. When he took over for Chelsea, there was a really bad loss that they suffered early on. I believe it was second or third game of the season at home to Arsenal. They lost 3-0. And, it was an opportunity for Conte to analyze the team there and to make the necessary changes. This Serie A campaign, Napoli start off with a 3-0 loss to Verona. And they've gone on since that game. They're unbeaten in Serie A through 9 games, 8 wins and a draw. It's just the correlations to me is outstanding. Not just the fact that this doesn't say that Napoli's gonna win Serie A or anything. I don't believe in those sort of conspiracies and those superstitions. I don't believe in that. But I definitely think there's a pattern of consistency to analyze here, and how Conte, he's able to make a difference at a club fast, especially if there's that, you can't go from the best team in Serie A running away with it to suddenly 11th place or whatever they finished last season in Serie A. I think, no, they didn't finish 11th. They finished 10th place last season in Serie A. You don't suddenly turn that bad. You don't suddenly, they didn't lose that much quality to go number 1 and run away with it to number 10. The quality is still there. That manager that following season just couldn't get the best out of it. Well, Conte, he's been able to get the best out of his players. He has them playing with confidence. He has them playing with a belief. Even when they go, even in games, if they were to go down, they have that belief that they're gonna come back. They hardly ever go down, really. I don't think they've gone down against any team to this point. No, they did, against Parma. That's the game I was talking about. That was another game I tuned in. They went down against Parma, and they were still able to come back in that one. This is a team not to be messed with, Napoli is. And it makes them even more deadly, the fact that they're not playing any European football. Again, another correlation with that first season that Conte had at Chelsea. They didn't have to play no European football. I think now that Conte has that opportunity to really zone in and put all of his attention solely on the Serie A, Inter Milan, they might have some serious competition this year. Obviously Inter Milan are trying to go for that back-to-back Serie A, 3 in the last 4. It'd be a great achievement for them, don't get me wrong, but Napoli under Antonio Conte will not be no pushovers. And we know the success that Conte has had in Serie A with multiple clubs now, including Inter Milan. So, yeah, if you're Napoli, supporter, you are riding high. You are you're riding high. You're excited. You don't understand what You're still not able to comprehend what should be the real expectations going forward. It's hard. With the amazing start you had, now you don't want to get carried over. But this defense doesn't concede many goals. You have an opportunistic attack that is efficient when the opportunities come that you need to take advantage of. There is a recipe there with formula. They have the manager. They have the recipe in terms of the quality, in terms of the play style, in terms of the efficiency. It's just not the consistency. Can we see this game in, game out to the end of the season? I don't see why we should doubt them. Through these first 10 games, I don't see why we should doubt them. But Inter Miami will. I keep saying Inter Miami. Inter Milan is still going to be their very, very difficult test, I do have to say. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will do a Chelsea versus United preview.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we discussed Napoli's statement victory over AC Milan. We move on to do a Chelsea versus United preview. Obviously, these are two teams coming in at a little bit different set of momentum. Chelsea, they both played midweek Carabao Cup games, and Chelsea got the win. Chelsea got the loss, suffered a loss to Newcastle, while United got a 5-2 win over Leicester City in their first game post Sir Alex Ferguson. But I'm not, when I talk about both teams are coming in different forms. I'm not really talking about the Carabao Cup, obviously. I'm talking about, in games that matter, their league campaign. Chelsea beat Newcastle. Ironically, they lost to Newcastle today, but they beat Newcastle in the Premier League on Sunday. United lost to West Ham. That ended up being the game that got Erik ten Hag the sack as well. And yeah, it's an interesting game that's gonna happen here. Last time Chelsea played United, it was a roller coaster of a game. This game now being played at Old Trafford. You go back to that fixture that happened last year. Manchester United, they trounced Chelsea in that game. Could have scored maybe 10 in that game. It was ridiculous. New Chelsea team, and you'd say it's same United team. Honestly, that United team last year was pretty garbage as well. They just happened to take advantage of a Chelsea team that was really, really open and was at a vulnerable position that year. If you remember Chelsea, they made that push to get into that top 6. It was that late push, that late, really, really late, last 15, 20 games of the season or so. But this time around, Chelsea are the team that looks really, really good. United look really, really poor. It's presented when you look at the league table. Chelsea sitting in 5th place, United in 14th. Chelsea already 6 points clear of United through 9 games. It tells the story there, but there is an element of a new manager bounce that United will, that could take advantage of. You saw that bounce already begin with the 5-2 win over Leicester. We've seen United take advantage of a new manager bounce going back to that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer start that they had after Mourinho was fired. And, that could be possible now with another manager, with another former player, a club legend, and Van Nistelrooy taking over as the interim manager. Maybe there's that new manager bounce in spring for him. And that can make it more difficult for Chelsea. But, look, for Chelsea, if they will allow United players to push, the United team to push forward, and they can take advantage of some of the United players pushing forward and take advantage of opportunities in transition, Chelsea can make them really, really, really pay. I think Caicedo would be key in this game. He's had a really, really good start to the season. Once they, if they can have that little bit of quality, in which they do, Caicedo, Latvia, or whoever's playing next to Caicedo, whether it is Enzo, they can play out of that initial press, which is not difficult to play out of when you're going up against United. There's opportunities for you to attack that United team because they were some vulnerable in transition and they're prone to defensive mistakes. And when you have the quality of players like Nuno Madueke, Cole Palmer, Nicholas Jackson, João Felix, and Nkunku, the quality that front 6 has, not just you're talking about the starters, but on the bench, Jadon Sancho as well, I didn't even mention him. You have that opportunity to really make Chelsea, really make Manchester United pay. And I think that will be a big factor in this one. I think Enzo Maresca is going to set up this Chelsea team in which they won't be crazy open, but they're going to go for it. They're going to push numbers forward. They're going to try to play on the back shoulder of the center half and play with their luck in terms of trying to beat United's line. And I think Chelsea will not be afraid of the game being at Old Trafford. I think they'll go in there. We saw with Chelsea, they were able to go and control, that second half going up against Liverpool. If they can do that, you can more than comfortably go to Manchester United and control the game at Old Trafford. And I expect Chelsea to do that. But how would it's hard to analyze Manchester United right now because we don't know what we're going to see. We don't know the formation. We don't know the tactics. We don't know whether or not there will be a new manager bounce. Obviously, if you're talking about Erik ten Hag's Manchester United, then they're almost dead man walking. And you're thinking, how do United get out of this game without getting embarrassed almost? But now with the fact that they have a new manager in there and there is that new manager bounce, I don't know what to expect from Manchester United. I don't know what the tactics are going to be like. I don't know what even the starting 11 will be. What are the players that what are going to be the players that Van Nistelrooy fancies in this one to get the result? How do they shape themselves defensively, not to get carved up the way Chelsea have carved up other teams that have left space in behind to play against. Because a lot of Chelsea's opportunities came from being a little bit more direct, just playing that simple ball in behind and allowing the players to run onto it and use their pace to cause the defensive players nightmares. How do Manchester United counter that? Do you drop the line back a little bit? Do you apply, do you go a little bit more on the press and really apply pressure in terms of the players trying to play that ball in behind, specifically the Caicedos, the Enzo Fernandez? How does United go about it to attack that? Because that has a big factor in this one. Chelsea trying to play those balls. And then obviously, Cole Palmer, he's just been so involved. The balls he plays in when he drops down in midfield, when he gets into the attack, how deadly he is in the front three. Not just being able to score the goal himself, but also, providing that cute and clever pass that can play someone in. There needs to be a bigger emphasis, if you're an opponent, of making sure you know where Cole Palmer is no matter where he's on the pitch, because he can make an impact no matter where he is. He has that ability to drop in midfield and play that ball in behind. He has the quality to do that. He gets the ball in the front three. You give him space, he will take advantage of it and he'll score a goal himself. If there's any sort of crevice that he can play the ball in, he has that quality as well to play that ball in as well. It's almost getting to the point that he needs to get man marked. You need to know where he is at all times, and anytime he's on the ball, you have to swarm him, because you don't want to give him any chance to be able to look up and pick a ball, and you definitely don't want to give him a chance where he's in the front three and he has time and space to get a shot off himself or to create an opportunity for himself or even for others. That's a big factor in this one, because Cole Palmer has a lot to do with Chelsea's production in terms of goals and assists, not just this season but in general. He has so much to do with with all the attacking play that happens at Chelsea Football Club. A lot of it gets funneled through him, and there are certain games as well in which he can be a little bit more invisible. I thought that was a good way to describe it against Liverpool. I thought he was invincible. I didn't see him as much as I expected. I'd see him in this sort of big game. For Cole Palmer, you don't want to do that again. And also, the thing with Cole Palmer is, when his performance levels are not his best and he's not getting his ball as much, you cannot really tell with his body language. You can't tell if he's thinking, just get out of here, let me get out of here, blah blah blah, or that's just his natural body language and he's just frustration with how the game is going and how he's not getting involved. It's hard to understand, because if you're looking at it from someone who doesn't really know much about him, you're thinking, oh, that could be a little arrogant how he's going about it, but you never know till you know the person, obviously. But yeah, just for me, I think Cole Palmer has to be more consistent in the good and bad games, because you can't have games when if you want to be considered one of the best players in the world, the best player in the world, you can't have those games where you just are flat out invincible. That's something he will have to work on, and I have no doubts that he will. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. before the break, we discussed Chelsea taking on United. We move on to react to some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. Let's go to the Carabao Cup. You had a lot of the round of 16 ties occur over the past few days now. Southampton, they beat Stoke 3-2. Brentford, they got passed in penalties against Sheffield. Liverpool 3-2 win over Brighton. Arsenal got 3-0 win over Preston. United got a 5-2 win over Leicester. Newcastle 2-0 win over Chelsea. Crystal Palace was able to get past Villa. Tottenham 2-1 win over City. Shapes up the quarterfinals. Some juicy quarterfinals. You have Tottenham taking on United. We know what happened last time Tottenham played United. That game will actually occur this time at... Actually, I don't know. I need to figure that out, actually. I don't know where that game will be occurring. Newcastle take on Brentford. Southampton take on Liverpool. Aston Villa take on Crystal Palace. Serie A had some games as well. Lecce took on Verona. These games are going back to Tuesday, by the way. Lecce got a 1-0 win over Verona. Bologna got a 2-0 win over Cagliari. Napoli got a 2-0 win over Milan, as we discussed early on this segment or on the show. Venezia got a 3-2 win over Udinese. Inter 3-0 win over Empoli. Atalanta got a 2-0 win over Monza. Juventus Parma finished 2-2. That was also a really, really interesting game. Juventus continued their season, by the way, unbeaten, but that's a bad draw. That's now 6 draws of 10, so they haven't lost the game, yes, but they haven't won much either. They've only won 4 of their first 10, but they're still sitting in 14th place. But now 7 points behind Napoli. We really didn't expect them to even be in a title race this season, to be honest. If we had to be... No, there's no if we had to, we did not expect them to be in a title race. But still 6 draws is something that they would definitely would like to improve on. Ruud van Nistelrooy, after the game, he said he would like to stay at United in any capacity. Whenever there's a whenever the new permanent manager comes in, obviously it's they're negotiating with Sporting for the release of Ruben Amorim. And sources say that United are getting there, but it's going to be a little bit difficult. And there's also reports that also came out that his arrival at Old Trafford could be potentially delayed till the next international break, which is November 11th. And that delay would give Van Nistelrooy a decent term to be that interim manager with games against Chelsea and Leicester City, and then the Europa League tie against Thessaloniki coming in between that period. Whenever he was asked after the game if he wanted to stay, he said, "Of course, I came here as an assistant to help the club. Now in this role, I'm helping as long as needed. In the future, in any capacity, I'm here to help the club farther to build towards the future. That's what I'm here for." To go back to yesterday, of course, receiving the players and getting together for the first day after Eric had to leave was a sad day to share. Mixed emotions. He was the one that asked me to work back here again, and in the first conversation we had, I left such a passion and care for this football club. This is why I was so sad to see him go. Having said that, football and life continues, and we know that 75,000 would be waiting for us here today, with the millions more watching at home behind the screens and radios, and you have to switch then as players. We tried to switch that for the players, try to get the mindset going and go out tonight and give everything for the fans. It is clear that this is going to be short term, so for me today was the most important day after what happened. In such short notice, we had to have things going and get into the quarterfinals. Credit to the players. They were fantastic today. For now, the focus is on Chelsea on Sunday, and I don't really look any further. Chances are he might have to look pretty far after that, because, if it is the case that he'll be coming back, that the new manager will come in during the next international break, then he'll be interim manager for a decent period. La Liga, they have requested the postponement of Valencia Real Madrid after the floods. La Liga, they want to request postponement of all the first and second division matches that will occur in the Valencia area this weekend. The Spanish Federation said this Wednesday, because floods in that region of Spain have left at least 70 people dead, which is absolutely devastating. La Liga was speaking of this. They said in a statement, given the devastating floods in Spain, particularly affecting the Valencian community, La Liga, at the request of its clubs, have asked the RFEF, which is the Spanish Football Federation, to postpone the following matches scheduled for this week: Villarreal, Rayo Vallecano, Valencia, Real Madrid, CD Castellón, RC Ferrol, Este Elnese, Este Huesca, and then Levante UD versus Malaga. We extend our deepest condolences to the families and friends of the victim and express our solidarity with those affected. 70 people dead and more missing. That is a devastating situation there, and we hope the safety for everybody. We hope that everyone that's injured gets fully recovered. That's very, very difficult to hear. Botafogo, they have advanced to their first ever Copa Libertadores final on Wednesday. They lost 3-1 actually to Penarol, but they won their first leg 5-0. So they'll be going on into the final. That final will be in Buenos Aires, and they'll be taking on fellow Brazilian side Atlético Mineiro. They reached the final after they drew 0-0 with the River Plate, and then they won, which was enough after they won that initial game 3-0 in the first leg. And we know Botafogo, they have some of the players that are part of this Brazilian national team that honestly was an important part of last international breaks Brazil team. You're talking about players like Igor Jesus and Luis Enrique that made some really, really big moments for that Brazil team at the last World Cup qualifying window. So it's good to see them continuing to perform at their club level. And Jurgen Klopp, he has defended his move to Red Bull after the backlash that has came from German supporters. He defended his decision to be the head of Red Bull's group of football clubs. And he said he didn't want to step on anybody's toes after all the backlash that happened. Klopp, he said, I didn't want to step on anybody's toes, definitely not. And personally, I love all my ex-clubs. I really don't know what... Oh, by the way, this was on a podcast that was hosted by Tony Kroos. So that's also interesting story there. Klopp continued on to say, I really don't know what exactly I could have done for everyone to be happy. Obviously, you have to understand, you going to Red Bull as a former Dortmund manager with how Red Bull is everything that they don't stand for, not just Dortmund fans, but in German football. It was always going to be a difficult sell. And again, money talks, and having the opportunity to be in football without actually being in football, day in, day out, that also has a lot to do with it as well. But I don't know. That's a difficult conversation to be had, because I don't really like saying much negative things about Jurgen Klopp. I think he's been an absolutely joy to watch. Such a charismatic human being, and But that decision, I don't think it rubs me particularly the wrong way, but I can understand why it'll rub, Dortmund fans the wrong way. Thank you guys, though, for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. No, we had a great show for you today, but thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We really enjoy what we do. We couldn't do what we do without your amazing support, and we're so thankful to have you as part of our community. I really, really enjoy doing this with y'all. I have to say, y'all give us an audience, and y'all don't complain, and y'all ask some really, really good questions, and y'all are consistent in terms of watching our content, and we couldn't thank y'all. We really couldn't. But thank you guys, though, for tuning in to the GSMC Soccer Podcast. Your support means a lot to us. Please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content and updates. So thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.